Like I did last October, I'm doing another series about the villains winning. I missed the villains from the specials last year, so I figured I would come back to do it this year. I might make this a yearly Halloween special that would obviously can't last forever, so I would eventually run out of villains to talk about. Anyway, this year, I'm going to talk about the villains from the episode of Bardock, father of Goku, plan to eradicate the Super Saiyans, and the return of Son Goku and Friends specials. Also, like I did last year, I'm generally planning to ignore all later villains, as they would mostly always defeat the previous villain. My point for making these scenarios is to explore what each villain would do if they won, not what they would do if they went against other villains. Getting killed to win is an easy task, because the change for it would be simple. Back when he and Bardock were fighting, he was about to blast and finish him off, though Barry tried to intervene and this caused Chilled to blast him instead, which led to Bardock transforming into a Super Saiyan for the first time. This time, when Barry tries to run and confront Chilled, Epona manages to stop him before he could, with Chilled's attention not being redirected. He would use his Death Razor to blast Bardock as planned, thus killing him. As for the consequences of him winning, the major change is that Chilled would get the fluid the people of Planet Plant use to heal injuries instantly. We don't normally know when his family got access to this, but with it being native to Planet Plant, it's likely they didn't get it until the Saiyans were annexed. So, with Chilled and his family having access to this far earlier, many injuries and likely even losses among his empire could be prevented. Eventually, it could even be developed into the healing pods sooner than usual, because they likely have more resources on hand to create them than the Saiyans did. A minor change is that the legend of the Super Saiyan never begins, at least not on the side of his family. The Saiyans would still have this legend, since Yamoshi likely still existed in this timeline, but the Saiyans would still believe it's just a fairy tale. Also, with Chilled being alive still, he would continue to rule over his empire, continuing his space pirate-like tactics. We don't know which of his descendants modified his empire so it wasn't just space pirates anymore and it became more of a formal empire. By extension of him being around for longer, it could take longer for his empire to make this transition. It's also hard to say if whoever became Chilled's heir in the original timeline would remain his heir in this timeline. He could end up having more children and choosing one of them as the heir instead, since he is still alive. Kind of like how Frieza was chosen as the heir to King Cold even though Frieza is the younger brother. So, King Cold, and by extension Frieza, might never be in a spot where they can rule the Empire, or they might not even exist at all. Another possibility is his Empire might not fully make the transition away from being space pirates. So, instead of the rulers later becoming more of a structured tyrant, they could always be more chaotic conquerors instead. If his empire keeps up this pirate-like structure, it would be more focused on raiding and looting planets for their resources rather than governing over these planets in the long term. This could make his empire far more unstable but also more aggressive, as they would focus on using brute force to expand instead of focusing on careful management. Since Chilled would have learned about the Saiyans because of Bardock, he might have sought them out to bring them into his empire sooner than usual. This would bring him to planet Sabala, as it would still be around at this point, but the Saiyans being forced to be under him earlier, this likely means that the planet isn't destroyed by the internal conflict that normally happens between the Saiyans and destroyed Sabala in the process, so they are forced to be united. Basically, this means that the Saiyans never had to relocate to other planets since their home planet wasn't destroyed. If the Saiyans still continued to grow stronger over time like Frieza and his men noticed in the original Bardock special, they could decide to wipe them out far earlier than usual as well. Without the Saiyans to rise up to get in their way, it might have even more of a dominant grip across the universe. Though, it would be in a more chaotic way, because with them still being space pirates, they aren't as structured. Whether anyone rises to take on Chilled and his descendants is likely a matter of time, but if any of them could defeat him is hard to say. As of now, though, he and his descendants would continue to control the universe in their own chaotic way. I know the title may seem confusing since the Frieza Force did win in the Bardock special, but there is a way that they could win in a better way than normal. After all, in the original, many of the Frieza Force were killed during the destruction of planet Vegeta, since Frieza didn't care if they were caught in the blast or not. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, as the change in his timeline would be earlier than that. When Bardock was in a healing pod, his team usually left to go to Planet Meat without him. It wasn't until after they left that he had the visions of the future which woke him up. The change in his timeline is that he has these visions slightly earlier earlier than usual, so he wakes up before his team leaves. This means that he and his team would go off the planet Meat together, but also get caught in Dodoria's ambush together. Of course, they could put up a better fight than they did alone, but even with Barlock's added power, all of them wouldn't be strong enough to overpower Dodoria. This is also assuming that what was said in the Ocean Dub about Barlock being able to make a fake moon wasn't true, so they would obviously easily win this fight if they could turn into their Great Ape forms. Regardless, the rest of the special generally goes the same, just without Barlock returning to planet Vegeta to try and warn the Saiyans, for obvious reasons. The next change in the timeline would be when Frieza is about to destroy planet Vegeta. Normally, when Frieza went against the Saiyans in this special, as we found out in later media, he was ordered to do this by Beerus, though there was also one mistake he made in the special. He let Goku escape. As we saw in the Cooler movie, Frieza and his men didn't see the space pod taking Goku away from planet Vegeta. It was Cooler that noticed it but decided to let it go. He saw it as Frieza's problem since it was his oversight. Not only did Frieza's oversight eventually lead to his own downfall, it also led to King Cold's and Cooler's downfall as well. Though Cooler choosing not to do anything about it also led to their own downfall. In this timeline, however, without Bardock being there to cause Frieza to send his men out to take him on, Frieza can destroy the planet sooner than usual. This means that after he finished laughing and gloating, he would return to his ship earlier than normal so that they could leave. As his men are preparing to leave and are at their workstations, they would notice a space pod that was carrying Goku fleeing planet Vegeta. When they report this to Frieza, he would order this pod to be shot down right away. Of course, with Goku just being an infant at this time, he couldn't do anything about this. Frieza killing Goku like this, it also makes the premonitions Bardock had in this special blatantly wrong if they stayed the same. So, his visions in this timeline might have been even bleaker before he died. The Kanasan that gave him the power to see the future said that he did this so that Bardock had to see his own downfall before he died. This could have been even further torture for the Saiyan warrior in this special. Not only would he have seen how he and his planet will die, but he'd have to see how his sons die as well. Anyway, back to Frieza and what he would do now that planet Vegeta is destroyed. As a brief side note, with more of the Frieza Force alive, Frieza has more men at his disposal. This is also partially the reason I called this video What If the Frieza Force Won, because more of his men are alive to serve Frieza. I also called this because I already made a video titled What If Frieza Won, and I didn't really want to make another video called that. Regardless, quite frankly, we don't know a lot about what Frieza did between the destruction of planet Vegeta and his arrival on Namek, though whatever he did in this time period would stay the same, as nothing about Goku having been killed would change anything. The first difference in the timeline, not counting what happened on Earth, is that when Raditz goes to Earth to find his brother, he wouldn't find anything, so he would just figure his brother never made it to Earth and conquer the planet for Frieza. Assuming the Saiyans plan to rebel against Frieza eventually, they might theorize that Frieza had killed Goku in his space pod. They would never be able to prove this. Another change is that Frieza may never go to Namek without overhearing the heroes mention the Dragon Balls to Vegeta. However, he also might have been able to learn about them in other ways, so it's hard to tell. Either way, even when Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz do decide to rebel, they wouldn't stand a chance. Together as Great Apes, their combined power level would be about 267,000, which is about half of First Form Frieza's power level. Once they are killed, that would essentially be all the Saiyans dealt with, as they don't know about Paragus and Broly. They could potentially find Broly eventually, but I doubt they would. They wouldn't see any worth in going to Vampa, without the need to search for fighters to fill Frieza's ranks, as it was never depleted by fighting the heroes or by Frieza's own attack. Eli and Lemma would never be searching the universe for fighters, so they would never go near Vampa, thus leaving Broly and Paragus there to die of old age. After this, Frieza would just continue to rule his empire in his typical way while Cooler rules his. If somehow possible, Frieza might be even more cocky in this timeline, as he single-handedly stopped the Super Saiyan from appearing. Anyway, King Cold would still play a part in the shadows and might help solve any squabbles between the brothers, though I could also see him just letting them fight it out at times. Regardless, there likely wouldn't be anyone that could challenge their rule over the universe anytime soon. The Cold family would remain on top of the universe just as they believed they were destined to be, at least for now. As a brief note before getting into this video, I just wanted to say that I watched the 2010 version of this special, which was the version called Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans. So, the events I discuss will be based on the new version instead of the original version, so I haven't seen the original 1993 version. With that said, let's get into this scenario. From what I gathered from watching this special, I didn't see a specific moment that Hachiak was about to win and take out the heroes. Instead, the only time I noticed that the villains had a chance of winning was when the Ghost Warriors of Turles, Lord Slug, Frieza, and Cooler were about to kill the heroes. In coordination with the Destron gas weakening them, the villains had Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, Trunks, and Piccolo blasted into a wall. They were about to blast and kill him, but Bulma then arrived. which she had produced a neutralizer for the Destron gas. While distributing the neutralizer gave the heroes their ki back, so they normally went on to defeat these ghost warriors. This time, however, the change is that Bulma arrives slightly later than usual. Because of her being late, the ghost warriors then blast the heroes, thus killing them. Even when Bulma does arrive, she might be able to distribute the neutralizer, but it wouldn't do much. The heroes are dead. They can't obviously follow up on defeating the villains, so nothing is there to stop them. The Ghost Warriors would quickly shoot down Bulma's plane, likely killing her in the process. Without her there to neutralize the gas and without the heroes there to defeat the Ghost Warriors, the people of Earth and the planet itself would continue to die. After all, it was stated in the special that it would take 70 days for the Destron gas to destroy all life on the planet. Some of the other heroes might try to take on the raiding Ghost Warriors, such as people like Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha, but they wouldn't stand a chance. They would be killed as well, so the Ghost Warriors would continue on with following whatever Dr. Lychee's orders are. Before getting into Dr. Lychee himself, there's one last thing I want to mention about someone on Earth. I don't usually discuss the later villains in these scenarios, but in this case it's hard not to. This special took place sometime during the 10 days between Cell announcing the Cell games and the day the Cell games would be. And the beginning part of this special takes place on Earth, where Cell is. While Cell is a bio-android, he is still a living thing, hence the bio part of his name. So, unfortunately for him, he would be weakened by the Destron gas and eventually killed by the Ghost Warriors. After this, the planet might eventually be completely destroyed by them once all of the life on it was wiped out. Now, back to Dr. Lychee. His major goal is to get revenge on all of the Saiyans by killing them. So, he and his Ghost Warriors would scour the universe for any remaining Saiyans. One such Saiyan they might find is Tarble, but since he isn't that strong, he would easily be killed. Another Saiyan they might find is Broly, and I mean the original DBZ version of Broly. In this special, Goku mentioned that Hachiak might be even stronger than Broly. This special was made before Dragon Ball Super, so Broly was not rewritten into his Dragon Ball Super version yet. I only brought this up because assuming that we're taking the Broly Second Coming movie into consideration, this means that Broly is out in space in his space pod. Normally, his pod would land onto Earth and he'd fall into a coma-like state. Without the Earth being there, his pod would continue to drift off through space until it eventually lands on another planet. Dr. Lychee and his Ghost Warriors might find him at this point, and assuming he still fell into his coma state, they would easily be able to take out the dormant legendary Super Saiyan. Since he has the ability to turn people with grudges against the Saiyans into Ghost Warriors, he could decide to turn Cell and Broly into Ghost Warriors as well. Also, with the power from the grudges that he received from people like Cell and Broly, he might have enough power to be able to awaken Hachiak. Now that Hachiak is active, he would travel the universe with Dr. Lychee and his Ghost Warriors, hunting down any remaining Saiyans. Once they are all killed, though, it's hard to tell what they would do. After all, in this special, Dr. Lychee never really mentioned any of his goals besides getting revenge on the Saiyans. There are two things that I could come up with that he potentially could try to do, but the first being to try and improve his Ghost Warriors. By this I mean that he could work on trying to develop it further so that he can get Ghost Warriors that didn't have grudges against the Saiyans. We've seen that he had no qualms against using Saiyans to do his bidding. He brought back Turles as one of these Ghost Warriors. So, imagine if he somehow managed to develop it so that he could get people like Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, and Trunks as Ghost Warriors. He might even try to bring back the other warriors they faced on Earth, such as Piccolo, Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha, if he figures out a way to do this. The other thing I could see him attempting to do is to try and bring back the Tuffle race. Since he has an expertise in science, he could work on trying to clone the Tuffles or use machinery to revive them through the use of advanced technology he develops. If they are revived, he would create a new Tuffle society that is ruled under him, though he would likely rule with an iron fist and be a paranoid and vengeful leader. With him being vengeful and if they are revived, I could easily see him trying to expand Tuffle's superiority across the universe. He could continue to develop new weapons like Hachiak and continue to grow his Ghost Warrior army to help in these conquests. Also, they will likely continue to use the Destron gas to aid in these invasions as well. He could end up having them target species that were like the Saiyans but had a history of conquering other planets. This is all just speculation, though, as he never stated what he wanted to do after he achieved his goal of getting revenge on the Saiyans. No matter what he decided to do, the universe would likely be at the mercy of his Ghost Warriors and scientific creations. When it comes to Abo and Kado, there isn't any way they can win once they reach the Earth. Even when merged as Akka, they didn't stand a chance against the likes of Goku and the others. So, the best chance for them to win is before Tarble flees from the planet he had made his home. We never see this planet and we're never told what the name of it is, but from what Tarble said, we know that it was being invaded by Abo and Kado along with the remnants of the Frieza Force. Since Tarble himself mentioned he didn't stand a chance against them, the way that Abo and Kado can win is by killing Tarble before he escapes. With Tarbell out of the way, they don't have to chase him down, so they finish taking over the planet they were raiding. We don't know anything about the inhabitants of this planet, but assuming they're all like Tarbell's wife, Gyr, neither she or the rest of them would stand a chance against them. Now here comes the hard part, which is what they would do after they won. Unlike Dr. Lychee in my last video, who at least mentioned something he had as a goal, Abo and Kato never mentioned anything they had as a goal, so anything I come up with for them to do afterwards is completely made up, as we don't even have an inkling of any of their goals. Since this special takes place in age 776, which is only 3 years before the Golden Frieza saga, and since Abo and Kato were mentioned to be part of the remnants of the Frieza Force, they could be part of the group trying to help rebuild their forces. We don't know the exact state of Frieza's old empire at this time, but since Abo and Kato were stated to be on the same tier as the Ginyu Force, they are likely some of the highest ranking members left in the empire, though they still would likely answer to Sorbet. Regardless, with them still around, the process of rebuilding the Empire might go faster. After all, they were stated to be as strong as Frieza, and not many people in Universe 7 are that strong. So, under the orders of Sorbet, they would likely start with uniting the fractured remains of Frieza's Empire. Not only would they work on bringing previous planets back into the Empire, they would also work on conquering other planets and forcibly recruiting more people into the Frieza Force. Eventually, even though the remnants of the Frieza Force would be bigger in this timeline, Sorbet might include them in the plan to revive Frieza, which Sorbet might come to the realization that they need to revive Frieza earlier than usual, since even with the added men from Abo and Kato's conquests, the Empire still isn't anywhere near how big it used to be. The resurrection of Frieza would likely go the same as usual, with Sorbet and Toguma still being the ones to revive him. However, they likely still would have had to use the Pilaf gang to help them find the Dragon Balls, even though this is happening earlier than usual. If I had to estimate how early this takes place, I'd say it happens about 2 years before Resurrection F normally happened, so it would be in age 777. Shu and Mai would still get their wishes for money and ice cream after Sorbet wishes for Frieza to be revived. When Frieza goes to train, Abo and Kato could potentially be training partners for him as well, alongside Toguma. After Frieza's training, which lasts 4 months as usual, they would go to take on the heroes. If this takes place before Battle of Gods, the heroes would be at a huge disadvantage in comparison to Frieza. After all, Goku would not have access to Super Saiyan God form yet. Also, Goku would be on Earth at the time, so Frieza would likely take him on first instead of Gohan and the others. Of course, Goku would be pushed into using his Super Saiyan 3 form with how strong Frieza got. Even then, this likely isn't enough to push Frieza past his final form. Frieza would still show off his golden form just to flaunt how strong he has gotten and to show that standing up against him is completely futile. The Tyrant would likely get bored of playing around with him eventually, so he would eventually kill Goku. He'd likely turn his attention to Vegeta next, but even he wouldn't stand a chance. As for the others, he might just let his men take care of wiping them out. So, Abo and Kato would be involved in a fight with the Earthlings. Also, as this is earlier than usual, Videl potentially could have been involved in the fight since she didn't have Pan yet or get pregnant with her yet, though she would meet her demise along with the rest of the heroes. As for what Frieza does with the Earth, I could see him either destroying it outright or keeping it around so he could use the Dragon Balls for any win he has. No matter what he decides to do, though, he would quickly regain his spot at the top of the universe. He might face potential challenges like Beerus down the road, but as of right now, Frieza would return to ruling with an iron fist.